Okay, everyone. Welcome to the ELSO conference and the opening plenary. We're going to get started by telling you a story. This is a story about the chain of survival punctuated by ECMO. With me here on stage, I have many of the people, these incredible people who were there for this story and will help us tell it. This is the incredible story of rescuing Michael Napinski.
Over 10,000 people attempt to summit Mount Rainier each year. Only half of these make it to the top. There's a reason so many people don't make it. Reaching the summit of a 14,410-foot active volcano requires hiking at least 8 miles with 9,000 feet of elevation gain. Never mind that it's the most glaciated mountain in the lower 48 states. Rainier tests climbers physically, but also requires a knowledge of mountaineering. Roped travel across glaciers pocketed with large open crevasses is no joke. Rock and ice falls, avalanches, and hypothermia are just a few ways the mountain claims its victims. Despite the risk, the rugged beauty, thrill of adventure, and the achievement of summiting draws people back again and again.
Oh my God.
And if I have trouble getting out, just grab my pole and help me pull out.
What?
Yeah. I don't know if I'll be able to.
Come on.
Are you videoing it?
Yeah.
Tell me when.
Go. Oh my God.
Oh yeah.
So now I have the pleasure of introducing our patient, Michael Napinski. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Hello, everyone. My name is Michael Napinski.
So tell me a little bit, how did you get into hiking, Michael?
Oh, this is an interesting story. I got into hiking after a 20-year addiction to drugs and alcohol, meth, cocaine, opiates, and I had always struggled trying to find something that would pull me out of that. I tried treatment, jail, detox, my family tried everything. I had all the support in the world, I just had no tools. I tried everything. And then one day, my brother came over with my nephew and said, "Would you like to go hiking?" And I said no for the 100th time. You know, I didn't want to. But I saw my nephew was getting a little bit of a mustache. And I thought, you know, he's about to be an adult. And this is going to be one of the last chances I'm going to be able to see him as a kid. And I really haven't been present as an uncle or a son or anything like that. And this was my opportunity. So reluctantly, I said yes.
So this story starts, the one we're going to tell today, with you taking a trip snowshoeing on Mount Rainier, our gigantic volcano just around the corner. Can you tell me a little bit about your plans that day for the hike?
That day was just going to be like any other. Whenever anybody says, let's go hiking, it's usually, you know, they're having a bad day or they want to have a good day or relieve some stress or whatever. So I always just say yes because I always feel amazing afterwards. As you can see from the pictures, I mean, we live in the most beautiful state in the world.
So tell me a little bit about, you know, you were hiking up towards Camp Muir, And then I understand the weather changed.
Yes, it was bad when we got there. The parking lot was completely iced over, so it was a little bit late getting into the parking lot. We got our gear on, and it was just going to be a normal day, except for I was packing very light that day because I had a sore neck, so I didn't bring all the stuff that I needed to stay alive.
It's okay.
We
got you.
Thank you. Thanks for having my back. We started out just normal hike. It was gray and, you know, kind of gloomy. I was looking forward to getting through the gray and getting to the top, and the weather changed and it got white, so we decided to split up. That was the plan the whole time, was to split up, because my friend was on skis and I was snowshoeing. So we split up a little bit early because I wanted to make sure I had time to get back to the gate. And the weather turned. All of a sudden it was a whiteout. It was like being in a snow globe. And at first it was really cool. Just look around and the ground is white, the sky is white. You don't know what's up, what's down. And I just kind of sat there for a little while enjoying it and waiting for the weather to turn so I could see where I was.
So after that, what happened? When did you start worrying that things were bad? And what are some of the last things you remember?
I started worrying things were bad. I had a new phone and I was using a GPS tracking app. And I had issues with this phone a couple days prior, and I knew it had issues, but it was a new phone, so I didn't think it was a problem. So I went to get my track on my phone, and it wasn't pulling up. So I was gonna have to get back without a track. I should have had a Garmin InReach or something like that, but I did not. And all of a sudden I have no way of knowing where I'm going. I knew if I followed the Nisqually down, I would end up close to the parking lot, or at least, you know, there was another trail that led up to the parking lot. I could have got there.
So you were headed down.
I was headed
Hoping.
down, getting a little bit nervous because I didn't know where I was, but I still felt pretty confident. The gate closed at 5, so it was getting close to 5, and I was really nervous, starting to get scared and panicking, and I decided to once 5 o'clock hit, I decided I was gonna be there probably overnight. Didn't have to, so I thought, like, what would it be like to stay the night on the mountain? So I climbed under a rock and sat there for a while. It was getting really cold. I was just shaking uncontrollably. I put one snowshoe on while I was laying down so it would keep my leg off of the ground. And I got up and I started walking. I had already started succumbing to hypothermia, but didn't really realize it. I got up and I started walking. I figured if I walked around, I'd stay warm. I started walking and I went, why do you only have one snowshoe on? And I slipped, fell end over end backwards. I woke up, or not woke up, but came to. It was like being, you know, a nice blow to you. I thought maybe I just, you know, had knocked myself out. It was kind of, everything was dark. I quickly realized I had no headlamp. My headlamp had fallen off in my fall. And I went to stand up, and my knee was, I think I tore the meniscus, something like that. I couldn't walk, and it was at that point I knew that I was in serious trouble. I had no light. I was not prepared for an overnight stay. I made a little video for my family. I said goodbye to everyone. I said goodbye to myself. I had just started to build this wonderful life. I repaired all these relationships with my family. I had new friends from the hiking community. Everything was great. It was a dream come true. And then it was just gonna end right there. I was grateful that I had a few years of good time, but I was also, I felt cheated, and I knew my family would feel cheated. You know, this whole, they finally get to see the real Mike, and then he's gone. And that was it. The video, and I went out.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that with us. So now to tell the next part of our story, I'm going to pass the mic down, and I'd like to introduce Tyler Severy with Tacoma Mountain Rescue. And he's also going to help us fill in a little bit of information about our national park system too, and the Mountain Rescue Association. So tell me a little bit about what happens next. There's a 911 call, no, Michael didn't return to the parking lot, so then what does our search and rescue and mountain rescue system do?
So ultimately what happens here, whether it's a 911 call or in this case there's actually the reporting party, which was your friend, it ends up in the hands of the head law enforcement officer at Mount Rainier. So he interviews Michael's friend that he was with, trying to get a subject profile. Who are we looking for? Is he prepared to spend the night? No. Which all that packs into the urgency of what we have to do. And then of course, where was he last? So there's all these different search monikers of the last known point, the point last seen. They had a ballpark of where Mike was about 9,000 feet on the Muir snowfield. And from leaving the parking lot to get there, it's 2 hours. You know, it is 2 hours for a Park Service ranger. I mean, these folks live up there, they're super fit. The rest of us, Mountain Rescue is a volunteer organization, so we all come from sea level. And so granted, there's a lot of fit folks, but they get up there first. And so the idea is that, they send out a hasty team to try to head this whole thing off at the pass. So they went up that night, they searched till about midnight. I don't know if there's 2 or 3 rangers. But like Mike said, the weather, it was really heavy snow, darkness. Any clues were being blanketed by snow. So there was no reason to keep looking for them. Couldn't find a headlight, which is usually a great giveaway up there if you could just stand still with a headlight, but that wasn't available. Yeah. And so at that point, basically we go back down to base and start to formulate a plan for tomorrow, right? And that's where, what happens at this point is the Park Service puts out a resource order. So we all, Mountain Rescue, will get an order that says, hey, we need 12 or 20 people, for a mission, and they kind of give us a mission profile. We're looking for a snowshoer. This was about where he was last seen. This is where we think we're going to look. So we show up, and we break off into teams. The next slide will show you where these teams go. So what happens is we segment a search area. And the segment is basically defined by geographical terrain and kind of how long it would take a few people to search it. So it's very subjective. But up there, this is what we showed up to. This is what the Park Service did. So we sent teams out with the idea of breaking everybody out into these little boxes. The box on the lower left, which is also the purple box on the right, if I've got that right for one, is actually where Michael was found. So he was found in what's called a Nisqually moraine. Most people would be lost, up in those red boxes. Mike, however, when you leave Camp Muir, the whole geography of Mount Rainier just trends to the right. So you just sort of walk into what we call a terrain trap. And he ended up, buried in the rocks, way down there in the lower left part of the screen.
So can you tell me, how did you find Michael? I understand you were the first person to find him.
Correct. So what happened was, as we were all searching, and when you search the Nisqually moraine, it's really difficult traveling. It's knee-high boulders, everything's covered in ice and snow. I mean, if you want to go there, it's a great opportunity to break an ankle and frankly have another mission, So, and actually much to the chagrin, there was a couple of Mountain Rescue guys standing on the bridge down at the bottom and they weren't allowed to go up because of that, just because of the terrain, until we had a find. So what happened was the Park Service has a contract helicopter. And as the weather cleared, they were able to fly up the Nisqually drainage and they were able to spot Mike. So they spotted Mike and they got the GPS coordinates, but they couldn't pick him up because they didn't have a hoist, right? It was the wrong kind of platform. It's a good search platform, but. So they spotted him. We took those coordinates. My team had just finished. Everybody else was still in the field, so we were just luck of the draw first up. We raced down there and ran as quickly as we could out the moraine. The funny thing was, is what it gets reported over the radio was that he had waved at the helicopter. So the assumption was, he's ambulatory, right? Like, that's great. Like, this guy's alive. He'll be easy to find. So Zach and I, my partner, we're going out, and we go past the coordinates. I'm like, man, this guy must be on the move. Like, where is he? And so we turned around, we searched a little bit, and then we found Mike laying down in the rocks, just out straight, cold, stiff. You know,
Wow.
couldn't find a heart rate, couldn't feel the pulse, couldn't catch respirations. But when we rubbed his chest, rubbed his sternum to see how alert he is, he groaned.
Oh, wow.
So we knew at a bare minimum he was alive.
And I understand serendipitously you guys had just had some hypothermia training. Can you tell me a little bit about what your next moves were and while you were calling in the military?
Yeah. So what happened at this point, so once we found Mike, and it was the irony of COVID, right, is Cassie Lowry, who was with Everett Mountain Rescue, she'd put on a fantastic hypothermia training for the whole region. And part of that training was, when you find someone that's profoundly cold, is don't move them, right? Do as little as we can. In the field, we'll never warm them up, but we can hopefully stop the cooling or slow the cooling. So that becomes our goal at that point, you know. We'd made the call, you know, it called into dispatch and recommended, you know, that Navy Woodby come out and fly it because the type of helicopter they have, and of course they can elaborate on that, but they have a hoist where we wouldn't have to carry Mike out. I was certain if we carried him out, he would most likely die. And we wouldn't, it's not the kind of terrain that we could do CPR on somebody while we're carrying them out.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Wow.
so yeah, the hypothermia training played right into it. So we, you know, quick check for Mike for any other major bleeds, and then start wrapping him up. You know, we rolled him over, put him on sleeping pads, got him inside what's called the blizzard blanket and a sleeping bag. As other teams started to show up, and that's noteworthy. There was 5 mountain rescue teams in addition to National Park Service teams and Mount Rainier Nordic Patrol. There was a lot of people out there that stayed looking for Mike.
Thank you so much, Tyler.
So
So now for the next part of our story, the next link in our chain. I'd like to introduce members of the U.S. Navy with the Whidbey Search and Rescue Team. So I have Thomas Molnar, Alex Castillo, and Justin Boyle. They've provided us with some incredible footage of Michael's rescue, so let's take a look. So first, I'd like to talk with Thomas. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, no problem.
So how does the U.S. Navy get involved with something like this? Can you tell us a little bit about what is the Whidbey SAR, Search and Rescue?
Sure. So the Whidbey SAR itself is, we fly on the MH-60 Sierra, which is the Navy's version of the Black Hawk. Ours are typically painted a nice orange and white to designate us as search and rescue. We generally have about 10 pilots, 10 naval air crewmen are also rescue swimmers, and then also 10 search and rescue medical technicians. We are trained in advanced pre-hospital life support, so ACLS, PALS, usually the general stuff that most street medics would have. But we curtail all of our training to working in the austere environments of the Cascades and the Olympics, to include Mount Rainier. We are also rappel qualified to where we can go down not only the hoist, but we can also use a 250-foot rope bag to also lower ourselves into whatever area we're going to. How the Navy typically gets involved in these kind of missions is our primary job is actually for the jets of Whidbey Island. But we do have the cool thing of also being involved in the state SAR plan to where if local organizations are unable to get into where they need to go to pick up a patient, such as the contract helicopter without the hoist, they will try every sort of available asset first before they go ahead and contact the Navy. And then we'll go ahead and get ordered out by the Air Force Rescue Coordination Center.
Thank you so much. So now I want to pass the mic over to Alex. Hi, Alex.
Hello.
So you were one of the pilots flying this helicopter.
Correct.
So can you tell me a little bit about what's going on in the video here and describe like what you're doing? There's a lot of maneuvering happening.
Sure. So as you saw from the video, one of our primary issues was weather on the way in. As we were getting, it was obviously beautiful up at Whidbey Island, and as we were getting closer and closer to Rainier, we started getting a little nervous about those cloud decks you saw as we were getting closer. We knew the site, we had a really good GPS thanks to Tyler's team, so we knew pretty much exactly where we needed to get. It was just kind of a struggle to figure out how to get in there. Thankfully, we had about as experienced a team as you could have. I think everyone who was on there was an instructor of some sort. So we were able to use really good crew resource management to kind of pick our way through those clouds. You saw us do a lot of yanking and banking, kind of picking our way through. And we also had a lot of experience in those clouds. So as we came into the moraine, the clouds were really low. So we were able to come up and get back in there. And as we're trying to find somewhere to land, there was, as Tyler alluded to, there's nowhere to put a helicopter in there. So we ultimately ended up having to hoist everyone down.
Okay. So we have a little bit of that footage here that I'm going to share with you guys with some audio.
Absolutely. All right. Absolutely. Yeah. Tell me.
Hey, how you doing? Yeah, if you want to just grab the front, I'll get the back with you.
Okay.
Next time, not so much snow.
Ain't bad yet. Beginning of the season. Yeah. How we doing?
Super.
All right, we can just put it right here for a second.
So we've got them on a soft litter.
Okay. Okay.
Right, so this whole package can just up and go with the cats.
Got a full 36 for both 410 for the kind of one lab.
Okay. Any access or anything?
No, we can't do that out here.
Okay.
I'd like to pass the mic over to Justin, who is providing Michael's care in the helicopter. So can you tell us a little bit about what's going on and what Michael's condition was like?
Absolutely. So once we got him in the back of the aircraft, kind of had three things going on at once. We were working on establishing a baseline set of vitals for him. We were working on getting all of his wet, cold clothing removed, getting some warming blankets on him, and then also assisting him with BBM ventilations. The care that we provided, so we had continuous cardiac monitoring on him. He was staying bradycardic at about 34, pretty much for the full flight. That was really the only vitals we were able to get on him. We had continuous BVM ventilations with him, and then he got an IO in his left tibia. We gave him about 800 cc's of warm fluid throughout the flight. He was completely unresponsive to us. Pupils were fixed gaze. Really the only movement we ever got from him was when we were flushing our IO that you can kind of see right there. It's really the only neurological anything that we were getting from him. So,
Thanks, Doug.
yeah.
You can turn the volume.
Can you blink if you can hear me?
So now we're on our way back, and on our way back to Harborview. So at this point in the emergency department in Harborview, we get a call ahead from the Navy Search and Rescue that there's an alpinist who was overnight and very cold, not cardiac arrest, but severe hypothermia. So the team was getting ready for the patient. They did not know if there was a question of possible trauma because of where he had been found among the boulders, but no obvious big injuries. So, can I just say, you guys are pretty amazing. Just blown away. And now this is where I first meet Michael. So I was actually working in triage, and one of our charge nurses came up and said, hey, there's this really cold young man who just came in, and he just had a VFib arrest. What about ECMO? And I don't have to tell you guys about the dire situation ECMO capacity was in November of 2020. So we had a full complement of patients with COVID on all of our machines, and we only had one backup machine. So we had a conference call with our ECMO group, and we decided, let's go for it. Let's use our backup machine, and we could call Children's Hospital, because the kids weren't getting sick yet, for a backup pump. So he was in VFib. And then we got him cannulated. It was a difficult cannulation because of his tissues being so cold, but with some talented surgeons and some time, after 45 minutes, got him cannulated. His core temperature was 22 degrees. And then rapidly rewarmed him to above 30, where we could defibrillate and get him in a perfusing rhythm again. So he was packaged up, brought up to the ICU, where he came under the care of Nurse Whitney Holan of the Trauma Surgical ICU. So can you describe a little bit about his exam and what your assessment was for him when he came up to the ICU?
Yeah, hi. I first took over for Michael. I worked night shift, so it was 7 p.m. As the ECMO operator actually that night. And then there was a separate bedside nurse. But initially, his neurological exam was pretty much non-existent. He had a GCS of 3. His pupils were fixed. He had no pulsatility, and he was warming, but cold. 33 degrees is what he came up to us at. Luckily, ECMO was not a problem. It was running beautifully. We started on some forward sweep, and we were able to wean him down. Throughout the night, he also flowed beautifully at 4 liters. So despite the earlier problems with cannulation, it didn't seem to be a problem at that point.
Okay. And then, so we moved forward. He had a pretty short ECMO run, was decannulated on day 2. These hearts wake up beautifully, start beating, doing great. So has a fairly uneventful decannulation with our vascular surgery team. And then you were there when he woke up.
I was. I had the pleasure of working a stretch of 3, so I actually took care of Michael all 3 of my shifts. And yeah, we had pulsatility by the end of our first shift, right? Kind of a change of shift in the morning, and then when I came back on day 2, he was already decannulated. So he'd been on for just under 48 hours, I believe, or maybe just over. But and then I actually, on the trauma ICU, we do charge as well as take patients, and so because I'd had him for the 2 nights before, I took him as a charge patient. And the report had been, he's decannulated, he's doing fine, but he's not waking up. He was still on a little bit of sedation medication, and so I paused it per our routine. Nothing really happened. I actually left it delayed for a little bit, went and did something, came back, still nothing. Was riding the ventilator perfectly. And I was getting ready to restart the meds, and I just sort of said, "Hey, Michael, are you with me?" And his eyes suddenly just completely popped open. And I think I actually took a little bit of a step back, because I was like, whoa, you're awake. It was not at all what I expected, and he was so calm. As most of you know, people who usually wake up on a ventilator are not calm. They are not happy to be unsedated with a breathing tube in their mouth and being forced to breathe. So the fact that he was just looking at me, very awake and very calm, and I was like, "Hi." And he just kind of like nodded at me, and I was like, "You doing okay?" And he was trying to tell me something, and I was like, "Can't talk. You got a tube in your mouth. You were lost on Mount Rainier." Kind of gave him the quick background of it, and then I went through some quick things we always do of like, "Do you want water? What are you trying to get at?" Right? Like you feel like you can't breathe. And I got to like, "Do you want me to call your mom?" And he was like, yes. And I was like, "Okay, I can call your mom. You're not gonna be able to talk to her." And he was like, "Yes." So I called his mom. Who's actually here today. This first time I got to meet her was today, but we talked on the phone because it was 2020, so no visitors. And I let her know that he had woken up, and as I recall, she was, I think, kind of just as surprised as I was. There was a little bit of silence of like, "Yes, no, he's awake, like he's fine, he's awake, he's nodding to questions," and she was like, "Okay, thank you for calling me." And I believe I put the phone up to Michael's ear so that she could talk to him. And he started to cry a little bit, and I was like, "It's gonna be okay. You're gonna be able to talk to her. We'll get this breathing tube out as soon as we can." And then I resedated him, and I think I actually maybe called Janelle. I called a bunch of people because I was like, "Oh my gosh, you guys, he's awake, like normal and calm." It was the most impressive wake up I think I've seen in my whole 15 years.
So Michael, tell us a little bit about what you remember. What was that like, waking up in the ICU?
Quite shocking. I had made peace with being dead. Said all my goodbyes, said goodbye to myself, and then all of a sudden, what in the heck? I see the light, I see Whitney, and she starts rambling this nonsense story that I, like, okay, maybe I'm like in purgatory or something. I don't know. I wanted to talk to my mother. I wanted to get up or do something. As soon as I got on the phone with my mother, it just, okay, this is true. What Whitney's saying is true. She's an angel, not gonna. I was just so confused. I was so confused, so happy. I was smiling through being ventilated because I knew when I saw the light that I was in a hospital, and that's all that mattered. Nothing else mattered other than being alive.
So just like Whitney said, you'll see this is November 14th. This was a text message I sent to that charge nurse who started the whole ECMO process. And then Michael.
Thank you, everybody, for saving my life. I am forever indebted. I can't express how grateful I am for everybody and the collective effort. You guys are amazing.
So, Michael, can I just say I can't tell you how glad I am, we all are, to have you here with us today. This is really incredible, and is a real testament to the whole chain of survival that it takes to make this possible and have you sitting here with us on stage today.
It takes an incredible amount of work.
Totally worth it. Can you tell us a little bit, like, what was it like recovering from this? Like, you were peak physical fitness, climbing a giant volcano, and then...
Oh, yeah, 2020, as we all know, was miserable. There was nothing to do. Everything was closed. But the outdoors, even some of the outdoors was closed. But, so yeah, I just went hiking. I was in peak physical shape. I felt like I could conquer the world. Everything was going wonderfully. All my family relationships, physical, everything. And then the next day, I can't breathe, I can't talk, I can't do anything. I felt so helpless, and I had no control over anything. I asked Whitney, can I use the restroom? And she said, no, there's no restroom in here. And she said, don't worry, you're taken care of anyways. And sure enough, I was taken care of. And, I said, well, I have to go number 2. And she handed me a box, and I was like, no, I really didn't need to use the restroom. I just felt so powerless. I just wanted to stand up. I wanted to move around. I wanted to see if this was real. You can't move anything, and hands are numb, and yeah, from being perfectly healthy to, struggling to breathe.
And I imagine that, or to ask you a little bit about the recovery, what that was like, both physical and mental and emotional.
Physically, it was like recovering from a lot of things. Luckily, I had experience recovering from drugs and alcohol, so I used that as a guide for my physical recovery. I figured, okay, at the end of day 1, I'll see what can be accomplished by day 1. Whitney was so great. She took the tube out of my throat right away, and I said, I want to walk, I want to stand, and she just, this is what you need to do, that's what you need to do, and let's pull this out of there, pull that out of there, and then we'll get you to the point where you can, do some things. And by the end of the day, I was able to stand up with assistance with a walker and walk to the window, and where I cried some more. And then, okay, let's give it a week. After a week, let's see how things are. And then a week, I did a reassessment. And then, 2 weeks and 3 weeks, 6 months, 3 months, a year, all of that standard stuff. And it looked really like this battle that I couldn't overcome. I was so scared. Well, what's next? What's next? I'm not going to be able to do this. I'm not going to be able to do that. But having it all written out and planned out and having everybody helping me was certainly nice.
Are there things, because we don't often, this group, we see our patients critically ill on ECMO in the ICU. Are there things that you'd like to tell us, that ways that we can best care for our patients, like body, mind, and soul?
Ooh, as far as the body goes, I think it would be really nice to have the patient in control of at least some aspect of their life, because you have no control over anything. I mean, I could talk, but I barely had control over that. Yeah, maybe giving, I mean, they did a great job, but I was like a child at that point. You know, my brain was pretty foggy, and I wanted some sort of control. And so maybe some sort of a exercise program, or what can you do? You know, can you work on coloring, you know, filling in the lines on this, you know, coloring thing today, or...
Yeah, just supporting you through this really incredibly traumatic thing, and giving you some power back in your life, step by step.
Not babying me. You have to push your patience a little bit. You know, don't just sit on your butt and let everybody bring you chocolates. Like, if you want some chocolates, you're gonna have to get up. You're gonna have to, you know, drink a glass of water and be healthy, and you get your chocolate.
Well, thank you very much, Michael, for being here, sharing your story. And again, I can't tell you how much it means to me, to this group, to all of us, for you to be here. So
it means the world to me.
So, and with that, want to say a thank you to our whole panelists for being here. A thank you to all of you for listening to our story. Next, we're going to transition into hearing the cutting edge research in ECPR, the technology used to save Michael. And welcome to ELSO 2023 in Seattle.